Now, here's a short story that perfectly demonstrates the saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. And when it comes to relationships, any relationship, but particularly romantic relationships, if someone is showing you repeatedly disrespect, clearly something's going on and they don't care about you, and it's best to part ways. And that's exactly what this guy does after a lot of signs of disrespect. Title: Am I the a-hole for breaking up with and kicking my girlfriend out because she went to an after party without me? And shout out to Nishad for sending me this story. Now listen to this. I, a 24-year-old male, and my girlfriend, a 23-year-old female, Anne, began dating in college. Last week, Anne invited me to her coworker, Joe's party. I had heard a lot about him in the past, and he and she really seemed to have a lot in common, especially with their taste in music. Apparently, he was an amateur musician with a fairly successful YouTube channel. Joe initially invited only Anne, but she still asked him if I could tag along, and he said it was fine. Okay, what do we got here? We got a guy she works with. He says he's heard about him a lot. When a woman talks about a guy a lot, that's something to pay attention to, because usually that means it's your replacement if you piss me off. And also, amateur musician. Last time I checked, women like musicians. And he has a fairly successful YouTube channel, which will be, to some people's eyes, interpreted as, oh, he's famous, or he's going to become somebody someday. A few times people I know who found out I have a YouTube channel say, oh, you're famous. I'm like, no. No, I'm not famous. I'm just doing my thing. That's it. But he invited only her. What does that say? The party was on Saturday evening. It was a fun party with about 30 people held at a restaurant that Joe had rented out. Towards the end, though, I wandered into Annie's little discussion group, and I immediately got the feeling that nobody really wanted me there, most of all, Anne. It was her, Joe, and a few other people. Thinking that I was just imagining things, I hung around and listened to Joe basically boast about himself the whole time. A little while later, I wandered up to get myself a drink and chat with a few other people. So, that guy Joe didn't invite him. You know, usually when you throw a party, you're going to invite friends and say, yo, your boyfriend can come, your significant other. But just invited her and the musician, and he rented out a restaurant for himself to throw himself a party. And he's staying around boasting about himself, and this guy can tell he's not really welcome there, especially by his girlfriend. What does that say? So eventually the time came to leave, and I went to find Anne again. Joe approached me at that point, and he said that he was having an after party at his house. I was going to refuse, but then he said, sorry, man, but only Anne is invited, while clapping me on the shoulder. You fucking kidding me, bro? Where does that come from? Aside the fact that he's obviously an arrogant douchebag who thinks very highly of himself, because probably he's already banging her. Or he can tell she doesn't want him to come. Sorry, man, only Anne's invited? No. And get your hand off my shoulder, probably break some of your fingers, and you can't play your guitar. I first told him not to touch me, and then said that she's not going. He informed me that she has already accepted the invitation. Man, this guy might as well just lift up his leg and take a piss to mark his territory like a fucking dog. I texted Anne immediately to ask where she was, and she responded, sorry, on the way to Joe's place. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you. Yeah, we're done. No woman that loves their guy is ever going to pull shit like this. I asked if she knew I wasn't invited, and then she left me on read. Texts after that were all ignored. She's a 23-year-old gal. Believe me, they're glued to their phones all the time. And I guarantee you she's seen this guy's text. Unless the phone's been put away in her purse because she's busy with having fun with Joe. I drove home furious. I stayed up all night and finally Anne walked in the door at 5:42 a.m. I know because I was by the window and watching. I recognized the car as Joe and the driver as Joe. Nobody else was in the car. Anne waved to him cutely and laughed at something he said. Man, Joe's such a great guy, staying up all night to drive her home with nothing in return. Anne came inside and acted surprised to see me still up. At that point, I finally told her we're done, and she had the rest of the day to move out. Anne was at first confused with me, and then I told her that she can just move in with Joe. Well, good for you, man. Anne's an asshole, Joe's an asshole, they can have each other. And I'm telling you right now, I'm sure Joe has his share of ladies, and the second he gets bored with Anne's going to be toast, and we're begging this guy to come back home. She rolled her eyes at me and said nothing happened. She gave me this spiel about my insecurities and imagination. In other words, shaming you. Anytime a guy stands up for himself, and rightfully does that, immediately the tactic is to label him as insecure, controlling, all these types of things. It's your imagination, gaslighting, and most guys it works for. I said it didn't matter. After this back and forth going on and arguing, Anne finally relented and sarcastically thanked me for wasting the best years of her life. The only thing that she said in this entire thing that actually was genuine and true. These are the best years of her life, in her 20s. Because guess what? A guy's best years are coming up. Hers are on the down once she gets close to 30. I'm not saying she can't look darn good for her age in her 30s and 40s. Hell, even 50s. Some damn good looking women in their 50s. But it ain't the same as the prime in the late teens and 20s. And you're not in demand. Anne finally moved out yesterday, and it was pretty dramatic. She said that she loved me and that I was throwing everything away over a party. Did I do her wrong here? I feel like I'm getting gaslit. Smack! Snap out of it, dude. Don't let her voice in your head manipulate you. No, you did everything right. Okay? Look how she treated you. It's always about how people treat you. Okay? But I gotta say, I gotta wonder if this guy taught her to treat him like that. You know, because you can't just leave. There are gals in this world that are complete a-holes. Anne here is an a-hole. But we learn shit through these stories, through people's mistakes, and I'm sure there were some things he was probably doing that, enabled her behavior a little bit. Sometimes, rare is it completely black and white. So I hope this guy takes a look at the situation and doesn't have an ex-girlfriend where he, makes her feel too certain about herself. I mean, they can't been together that long, and they're living together. So when a guy rushes into a relationship, has a girl come move in with him rather quickly, that shows the girl, oh, he's so into me. I can do whatever I want. Who knows? Regardless, he did the right thing. You can't be with someone like that. Every step of the way, the disrespect. And that guy, I'm convinced that guy was banging her. The way he just tapped him on their shoulders and said, sorry, man, she's coming with me. Yeah, he's already banging her, absolutely. And the fact that she just ignored him the whole night, went off, didn't care. When he went to talk to them, he could tell, because this is his girlfriend, he can tell that she wasn't happy he was there. Come on. A girl loves her guy, would never do that type of shit, ever. But it's easier to make him have to be the bad guy to break up this thing. Now, what he needs to do is control the narrative. He needs to go to the friends and family and all that, depending on how well he knows the family and all, and say what happened. Just so there's no confusion, because she's going to paint this guy as the bad guy. And the last thing, guarantee you, when this doesn't work out with Joe, because Joe obviously gets girls, and he's done having his fun with it, the thrill is gone because she no longer has a boyfriend, he's going to kick her out. And she'll be back begging and pleading to take her back. And he should not do that. And I hope he learns his lesson. And by the way, he has one more comment here I want to read here. He said here, I'd say that I'm 95% sure something happened with Joe at that after party. I don't have the evidence, but I know my girlfriend. The way she waved him goodbye, and the way she laughed when he talked, the way that she was actively listening at the party, those are mannerisms she used to have with me. Then there was the thing with Joe's stupid macho power play of putting his hand on my shoulder. It was like he was mocking me because he knew what was going on. Absolutely. This guy's banging her. And you know what? He can have her. But going forward, this guy needs to really pay attention to how he acts, pay attention to red flags, keep an eye on his girl, that type of thing, and do not take her back.